The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 32. Paradise Falls. The mesa of Paradise Falls reaches such dizzying heights that I emerged from the mists into a patch of low-hanging cloud. The wind keened through the rock formations on the mesa's surface, which loomed threateningly in the gloom. I had heard tales of the dazzling beauty of Paradise Falls, but at that moment, I thought the blighted landscape of Keening would have been equally attractive. As I attempted to get my bearings, the cloud passed, and the mesa was bathed in sunlight, transforming what had seemed like desolate badlands into a breathtaking forest of stone. Spires and buttes towered above me like mighty trees, and I could make out a maze of canyon paths on a lower stretch of the mesa. But most beautiful of all were the falls that gave the mesa its name, cascading down its sheer face and vanishing behind the tree line thousands of feet below. The falls were so massive that they deceived the eye, for nothing so large could be far away. It seemed as though I could walk from one edge of the mesa to the other in a single day. Of course, this was an illusion. Not only is Paradise Falls larger than it first appears, although still one of the smaller domains on my itinerary, but the dangers of the landscape and its inhabitants make travel a difficult prospect. The Lord. Paradise Falls has only one human inhabitant, Charles Muntz, a renowned artificer and explorer who has traveled from the peak of Mount Naiad to the very heart of the wildlands with only his faithful dogs for aid. His fame is so great that it is difficult to separate fact from fiction. I was informed by his most ardent admirers, primarily elves, dwarves, and other long-lived peoples, for most of the humans who would have remembered him have long since succumbed to old age, that Muntz and his airship have summited Blutsbur's twin mountains, delved into the heart of the Shadow Rift, and escaped alive from Necropolis. The latter two would be impressive feats indeed, seeing as how Muntz vanished in disgrace decades before those two domains existed. The scandal surrounding Muntz began when he returned from Paradise Falls with his greatest discovery, the bones of a bird-like creature that appeared to be a primitive relative of the coatl, the eggs of which had miraculous properties. Although this was initially hailed as a monumental find, the wizards and scientists who studied the bones found no sign of magical or celestial auras, and several even suggested that Muntz had fabricated the skeleton by cobbling together the remains of multiple creatures from the falls. A humiliated Muntz swore that he would go back to the falls and would not return without a live specimen. That was nearly a century ago, and no one has heard from Muntz since. I was certain the Muntz had died in the interim, if not from some danger of the falls, then simply from age. I would later learn, however, that the miraculous properties of the bird's eggs included tremendous longevity. Muntz is still alive, searching for the bird from his airship and attended on by his dogs. The decades have curdled his quest for the bird into an obsession, and his paranoia has made him more dangerous than any natural hazards the falls can present. The land. For all its beauty, the mesa is rife with dangers. It is easy to become lost within the twisting spires and labyrinthine canyons. Had I been unable to fly above the landscape to orient myself, I would likely have wandered in circles for hours. Cloud banks conceal sheer drops, and patches of jungle within the mountains are home to a variety of predators. At one point, I encountered a towering bird with vibrantly colored feathers. It matched descriptions of the animal Muntz had found, but surely a creature that I stumbled upon after a single day could not have evaded Muntz for nearly a century. I had made camp for the night and awoke to find it rooting through my pack, searching, it turned out, for the chocolates I had brought as mist talismans. I initially intended to shoo it away, but it was such a strikingly beautiful creature that I found myself sharing my chocolate with it instead. It left me when my limited supply ran out, and I found that from that point on, it became far easier to navigate the natural hazards of the falls. These natural hazards, however, are far fewer in number than the traps that Muntz has laid to capture the bird. Thankfully, these traps are non-lethal, as Muntz's vow was to return with a live specimen. I avoided several covered pits and a few wicked-looking bear traps. A bird with a shattered leg would still be alive, as well as cutting myself free from a snare. However, as I navigated through a particularly dense patch of underbrush, I felt, too late, a pressure plate moving beneath my foot. I tried to throw myself aside, but a volley of darts sank into my flesh. I had the hazy impression of quadrupedal creatures closing in around me before everything went black. Dread possibilities. When I came to my senses, I found myself being borne along on the backs of several dozen dogs. Not only were these dogs moving along with clear organization and purpose, but they were speaking to each other in a grammatically bizarre dialect of common. Their collars glowed faintly as they spoke, and eldritch sight revealed a strong aura of transmutation magic. My initial wild thoughts of an unusual lycanthrope subspecies gave way to the far more plausible theory that Muntz had awakened his beloved dogs. The dogs delivered me to an airship bearing the legend The Spirit of Adventure, and an old man who could only be Charles Muntz descended the gangplank to greet me. I explained to him that I was conducting a survey of various domains and had inadvertently triggered one of his traps. His response was cordial, but I could see a glimmer of suspicion in his eyes as he invited me into the airship. Muntz gave me a brief tour of various trophies he had acquired during his adventures, including what he swore was a fang from the Tarrasque, but his mood darkened as he steered the topic of conversation to the elusive bird. He informed me that many trespassers had come to Paradise Falls attempting to steal the glory of his discovery from beneath his very nose, often pretending that they were visiting on some other business. He gave me a pointed look as he said this, and I assured him that Paradise Falls was not the first or even the 30th domain that I had visited. If I'd had any interest in his bird, surely I would not have waited so long to seek it out. I showed him souvenirs from my own travels in an attempt to mollify him, reaching out as one explorer to another, and I could see him softening. He asked if I could help his dogs navigate the rocky labyrinth, and I readily agreed, anything to calm his paranoia for a moment. When he requested a demonstration of my magic so that he would know I was a true magic user rather than some charlatan attempting to inveigle access to his resources and his bird, I obliged with minor illusion, intending to show him some vision from Neverland to prove that I was as well-traveled as I claimed. However, as I cast the spell, the miniature pirate ship that appeared in my hand was in a strange color. A color that was not a color. An explosion of huge, brilliantly colored feathers rained down from the ceiling as wild magic surged around me, feathers that were a perfect match for the bird I had seen. This was all the evidence Muntz needed, and he ordered his dogs to subdue me for questioning. Thankfully, I was able to cast Fly and escape, although the dogs soon pursued me on flying carpets, forcing me to navigate the rocky labyrinth on foot to the nearest mistway. The land continued to shape itself in ways that helped me and hindered the dogs, and I made a mental note to bring back more chocolate if I ever returned to Paradise Falls. Parting thoughts. Although he was once an intrepid explorer, Charles Muntz has become a miserable, paranoid hermit who cannot even enjoy the potential for adventure that surrounds him on all sides. Instead, he clings to his bitterness and obsession, fixated on clearing a name that the world has long forgotten. A second wild magic surge nearly sent me tipping into a canyon as I made my escape. Up until this point, these surges had been nothing but helpful, even life-saving, and I had bridled at my patron's offer to remove them. These incidents in Paradise Falls have made me reconsider. After today, part of me thinks, I wish someone would come and take this magic away. Right now.
What's said is said.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at DarklordAslan. The Wonderful World of Dark Lords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.
Little servant, are you there? Little servant. Danielle?